now. Thanks.
There we go. Thank you.
All right. So if you could give us your name, please. Thank you very much.
Waitohaitem Janachos and Squex, Moops to Squapum, one of the managers of Squeque, the missing. So our submission to the TNRD. The Tecumseh Sequapum community and Squeque department shared this update regarding the Tecumseh Sequapum Healing House, a landmark project dedicated to the healing of survivors of the Kamloops Indian Residential School, KIRS, their families and their community. Following the 2021 news release about the Squeque, the missing, it has been the focus of both Tecumseh Sequapum leadership and staff to develop a safe space for healing programs. This need was shared directly with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau when he visited Tecumseh Sequapum on October 18, 2021. In early 2022, Canada made a federal announcement that $12.5 million was granted for the development of the Healing House. Since that time, Tecumseh Sequapum have completed a feasibility study, selected the optimal site for the Healing House, and hired a professional team to design. As Tecumseh Sequapum looks to begin construction in mid-2025, this update is provided to inform the community about key information. Following are the key points. The initial phases of the program will focus on elders and residential school survivors, warriors is which they like to be called. The vision of the project is to provide a safe space for holistic healing through reconnection to family, community, and culture. Programming at the center will focus on the traditional community day use activities. The Elders House may be a focus in the future at the site. We are planning for an elders lodge, which is one of the other commitments that the Prime Minister gave to us. The lands at Spuluk Ranch, Coach Jim. The lands at Spuluk Ranch were previously part of Tecumseh Sequapum Reserve lands. So this is background history. These parcels were expropriated by different levels of government in 1915 without the consent of Tecumseh Sequapum and were never returned to Tecumseh Sequapum. The Tecumseh Sequapum repurchased these lands, formerly known as the Typhon properties or the Edwards properties. Vic Edwards, who was the superintendent of the RCMP for the Kamloops area, was the owner of the land, and have applied for the site to be added back to Kamloops Indian Reserve #1 through the additions to reserve process. And we're still going through that process, not like everyone here where you go and you purchase land 30 days later, you get your fee simple. With us, we got our fee simple and we're been waiting many, many years to have it added back to reserve. The Tecumseh Sequapum are working through regional and provincial regulations for the purpose of constructing the Healing House. The Agricultural Land Commission recognized the importance of the project, has granted the land use variance for Tecumseh Sequapum Healing House. For inquiries, please call CLC at TTS, and then we have a link in here to the federal announcement and a link to the ALC portal. And TTS is a formal government. So when we meet with the provincial government, it is on with our nation, the Sequapum, it is on a government to government basis. When we meet federally, it is on a nation to nation government. All levels of government, including the federal government, are involved in this project. TTS has followed all procedures and we have nothing to hide from this. This land parcel, which was once reserve and it was misallocated, stolen, The Indian agent and the government of Canada took it on us. It was a part of our, so initially we have the Douglas Reserve, which we have a specific claim, land claim in the federal government. The court case is in abeyance at the federal court level. And then Trutch came, and then you have the Trutch cutoff reserves. And then Sprout came, so Governor Sprout, and the reserve as it stands today, Kamloops Indian Reserve #1, is what we call the Sprout Reserve. So this parcel of land was a part of the Sprout Reserve. This is a community healing center. It is not an extended care or a rehabilitation facility, which some people are thinking that it is. We've read the comments that have come through. The uses are clearly laid out in the ALC documentation. This will be a day use facility that allows Kamloops to engage in traditional activities as well as Western science counseling and healing, but not only for Kamloops, but for all other residential schools in British Columbia, the survivors, the warriors who attend it, so that they can start that healing journey that they need to do. The application states that programming will include traditional food, forest, and berry walks, food preservation and canning, the growing and harvesting and processing of traditional medicines, community gardens, animal husbandry, and riding, hunting instruction, and meat smoking and hide tanning, amongst a range of other activities. And we are also proposing that in the future that we have healing with the horses. So the horses are a big component to us. They are part of, since the horses re-arrived back in North America. They are a part of our family, and they bring the healing that we need to have to our people and to our community. So that's our spoken and written submission to the TNRD.
Thank you very much, Jeanette. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Anyone from the board? Okay, thank you. Does anyone else wish to stand up and make representation, or is there anyone online who wants to say anything?
Is my voice being heard?
I have a couple of elders and as we call them, warriors, survivors for the residential school here. So first of all, I want to acknowledge them and give them the opportunity to say some words of how important this House of Healing is for our community and also for the healing of our people. So we have Elder Connie Jules, and I have my older sister and Elder Dolly Thomas here. And if Connie would like to say some words, and if Dolly would like to say some words after, I really appreciate that.
Elder Connie Jules. I am resident elder at Scalep School of Excellence. I just want to say that first off, I have had some workshops that I had attended on the island for traumas, and I couldn't be more appreciative to have gone to these. I was very confused and very uncertain about so many things, but talking to the facilitators that came and spoke to us and had pamphlets and materials and talked to us, it was a wide range of traumas for us to be able to attend, and we put our applications in, and I was very fortunate to be able to go to quite a few of them, and I worked with the most traumatic experiences that I had as a child going to residential school as a day scholar. I also am part of the 60s scoop. I like to say that I'm a survivor of the survivors, because our parents, when they left the residential school, some of them have lost their cultural ways and their traditions, and we're very fortunate for those that hung on to it. One of the things that when people go to these healing workshops is that they have a lot of anger, hate, and blame, and confusion. One of the things that is really important is that you don't know where you're going until you know where you come from. And in that, if you don't learn where you come from, you're going to repeat cycles throughout the rest of your life, and you're also passing it on to generations. And I was fortunate to have a granny that spoke to me in the language as a child. But when she passed when I was young, I didn't have that anymore. And because my mom and dad were forced to not speak that, although they were teachers later on, it's really important as part of our tradition and our culture. The language is who we are. And working with my friend at the Skellep School, I'm learning that with them. And some things come back to me, and I'm very fortunate to feel that, and also to see how much improvement our children are doing because of the day that's put aside called Orange T-shirt Day. But I want everybody to understand that Orange T-shirt Day to me is a day that people are starting to make it a common thing, which is I like to think about rather a story called Shishietko. And that is about when my mom was living in Skeetiston, she was just a little girl, and she loved her granny so very much. And everybody in the community all went down to the fields, having little family picnics with their own little groups and stuff. And my mom had received a little tiny medicine pouch from her granny. And she was so excited about that. And she just was really happy. And that was something that was near and dear to her heart. And when she went to the school, that was taken away from her, and she'd never seen that little buckskin pouch ever again. And her granny had talked to her about that. And so to me, that's what makes Orange T-shirt Day what it truly means. And also for myself, I'm getting a dry mouth here. And also for myself, thanks, Dave. And so for myself, Orange T-shirt Day really was really important to me. As I said, I didn't have anyone to help me further through with my language and stuff. And so I felt a lot of shame. And when I learned about Orange T-shirt Day, I understood that my mom and dad kept that so that we would not be submitted to the same kind of punishments that they were. So I see our healing house as something that'll help our generations to understand. There are a lot of confused young people that I met when I was at this workshop. And when I met them, they were really angry. And I was quite shocked. I understood, but I was still very shocked that they had the voice that I never had. And when they came together and we were there as elders, survivors, and the younger generation, intergenerational, that the young generations finally seen and were crying and hurt because they heard why their grandparents maybe never taught them the language, never taught them some customs and traditions. And the elders that were sitting there were crying because they didn't realize, and some realized the hurt of why these young people were so angry and bitter. So when that closed, there was a fiber that came together, and that is helping us to bridge our past with today so that we can become this beautiful 7 generations down the road and be able to feel blessed and to continue in a very proud, authentic way of who we are. Thank you.
Wake the White App, Dolly Thomas. I'm a intergenerational survivor. My grandparents, both of my grandparents on my father's side, as well as my mother and father, attended what was originally the industrial school. And then in 1958, November, my father was brutally murdered. And in December of 1958, the 6 of us were brought to the residential school where we stayed for 7 years. And then we became day scholars. And this healing center will help restore the family that was taken from us, the family of being with our children in a good way, teaching our children without being hit, without being spanked, without being demeaned, without being put down as we were taught at the residential school. And I really want to stress that point because just recently we had a women's day on Tuesday where we came together, 60 women for the first time in our community. 60 women came together and made Christmas decorations, and it was so beautiful inside here for me as a grandmother, as a mother, as a woman of our community, to see that for the first time. And I hope and I pray that this healing center will do the work that needs to be done to continue this sort of building upon the families within our community that we so much need for our children and our grandchildren. To bring back the hunting and the fishing, to bring back the berries and the medicine that we so have very little knowledge of today, that we can be able to take our little ones with us and teach them along the way. I thank each of you for giving me this opportunity to speak. Have a good day.
So Chair, and I just want to make sure everybody's aware, you know, these are 2 of our elders in our community, 2 strong women, and they shared from their heart. And when we speak from our heart, we're speaking from love. And we're not here to beg, we're here to educate and let everybody know that we're on a process of healing. And I want to, you know, say thank you, first of all, to Jeanette, for Connie, and for my sister Dolly. When we're doing this work, and the women are leading the work in our healing, in my belief that we're doing the right things. The women are showing us how to heal. They're helping us. And so I just want to acknowledge that you just witnessed healing here, for them to have their voices to be able to share, because all of them had some kind of trauma from the residential school. And yet you see how strong these women are. And so I'm really proud to be from the Kamloops-Slepnik and really proud to be a part of with the women from my community. And so I want to encourage you guys to be able to understand this, this opportunity for this house of healing. It's for a place of healing. It's not a detox center. It's not a treatment center for drugs and alcohol. It is a place of healing. And when we talk about healing, we're talking about our mental healing, our emotional healing, our physical healing, our spiritual healing, the holistic approach. And that's what makes it special for us, because we do that work with programming, but also the connection with the land and language. So I want to, just encourage you guys to all understand what you witnessed here today and how important it is to be able to support our community and our people to be able to help in this healing process. Coach John, for listening.
Thank you. Now, I know there are people watching online. I do not see any hands up indicating that anyone online wants to speak. If that is incorrect, if there is someone online who wishes to make a submission to this public hearing, please either use the raise hand function or wave your hand in front of the camera. I see Mr. Beadle there. You would like to make a submission? All right. If you could unmute your microphone, please, and start off by stating your full name.
Can anybody hear me?
You'll need to speak up, and we're going to work and see if we can make the sound louder here. But if you could get as close to your microphone as possible, please, sir.
Okay, I believe I am close. I don't know if this mic is muted or not.
Nope, that's fine. We can hear you clearly.
Okay, sorry, hang on. I'm trying to bring this back up. Sorry, I've somehow lost it. Bear with me a second here. Oh, okay. Am I live now?
Yes, we can hear you fine. As long as you don't touch anything on your computer and don't move around, you should be fine.
Okay. My name is Ernie Beadle. I'm one of the adjoining neighbors to the subject application in front of all of the board of directors here today. I wrote an email to the board of directors about a week ago as I was departing and leaving out of country, which I am currently, which is why I'm doing this via Zoom instead of in person. So I am speaking directly for myself, and there are 6 neighbors who I'm speaking mostly for. And so I guess my first question is, have the directors received a copy of my email outlining all the communication that we have taken in the last 2 weeks, trying to get some answers?
Chair Roden, that was the written submission which was attached to your agenda pack.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. So starting this off, firstly, I'd like to thank the band members for coming forward and telling us their story. I think this is, I don't think anybody has an issue with what it is that they're trying to do and with the putting in a wellness center, a healing center. Obviously, there's been a lot of hurt over the decades as they've gone by, and they need a healing center. We're not speaking against the center per se. What we're speaking against and being vocal about is a process that has taken place here. The TNRD, the Land Commission has approved not a removal, but an exemption of a parcel of land. Now that normally is totally abnormal, but I won't get into the politics of all of that. What has happened here is that this thing has run the gamut, gone to the ALC, then to the TNRD, and we as neighbors were not notified of this in any way, shape, or form. When it came to our attention via a sign on the side of the road, we started asking questions. And here we are a week and a half, 2 weeks later, and we have 0 answers. We spoke out to the Land Commission. How did this happen? That this has gone as far as it has with no input, nothing. And they sent us this long, lengthy letter of their approval process. One of the things that was quite disturbing is that they said that they had, the band had undertaken to have 11 properties surveyed or analyzed for alternate sites. When we requested that study to see where these sites were, they absolutely locked down and refused to talk to us. That is not a healthy communication. We still have no answers for it. What we find ironic is that the band needs a healing and wellness center. They also own the Harper Ranch, which is 2 or 3 kilometers down the road from this subject application in front of you today. Why is that location been picked? Why can we not get any information how that process went, if it even went at all, what those properties were, and why they did not choose to locate up on what is called the Harper Ranch, which the band currently owns, which in, I think, just about anybody's opinion would be a far better healing center, wellness center, in terms of them to be grounded back to their land and all the things that they need, because that has been an active cattle ranch, horse ranch, sheep ranch, you name it, it's been everything, and it is an incredibly well-respected ranch in the Thompson-Okanagan area. For some reason, this site has been picked, but not that we can see for any good logical reason. So it's not opposition of what they're trying to do, it's clarification on why it's not going on the Harper Ranch, where it would not be a problem for anybody. And the reason I say this, and I think it's been alluded to, is that the reference to addiction centers and stuff. When I called the Land Commission and asked for a definition of what a wellness center is or healing center is, they had no definition. So they're approving a process that they have no knowledge and nothing to say this is what it truly is. I then reached out to the TNRD and asked, in your OCP, does the TNRD have a definition of a wellness center or a healing center? Because we as neighbors have a right to know what it is that's being proposed to go alongside us to see the potential impact. Again, zero reference, it's not in the OCP. So the TNRD is in a position of, in theory, it's gone through 2 readings for a third, and yet there's no definition of what this use actually is. The wellness center has a very strong connotation to it and a well-deserving one. But how does anybody know what the implication of that is? I made reference to, can it be an addiction center? Can it be a drug hab, alcohol rehab? Is it members of the band, Kamloops band only? Is it provincial? Is it federal? I raised a whole bunch of questions to the commission. They immediately shut us off and refused to answer anything. I raised the same to the project manager for the band. Sorry, I'm going to pull his name up here. Bear with me a second. Oh gosh, I'm sorry. My file got lost as I was flying out of the country.
Derek Renner?
Derek Renner. I was given his name as being the project manager for the band. I reached out to him via email, sending him the same email that I sent to the Land Commission, expressing a concern. Here's the question. So there's no, I'm saying one thing to one group and another thing to another one. Derek got exactly the same information that I was requesting from the Land Commission. He refused to answer me. He did not acknowledge my email to say, here's clarification. He did not even extend an invitation to a meeting, of which Director Morse was trying to arrange for me at the 11th hour, so that I could have sat down and talked to him and just had an exchange of information so that we could all be educated on what it is that's going on. We were not even given the courtesy of that. When I spoke to the TNRD and said, why were we not notified, or asked the question, why were we not notified about this? I was advised that they have to only notify neighbors of 150 meters. Now, I beg to add, this is really bizarre to me. This is a rural property. We're all on acreages out there. There is no neighbor that's 150 meters from the subject property. And yet that's all the TNRD is liable for to reach out to. So consequently, we as neighbors, we're not given any notice whatsoever and not communicated with. That is bizarre. Then I was also told that they have to advertise in a paper for 2 editions. Well, they chose to advertise in the Chase paper. Kamloops lost our 2 papers, but we have another paper that was just is now coming alive again a month and a half ago. They chose not to advertise in that paper where we might have had a chance to find out something about this. So the optics of this are not very good. Not about what it is that they're intending to do, but the method of communication. There is zero communication going out to the neighbors of this property. And the worst thing that can happen in this world is poor communication. We're all intelligent people. We all want to make things better. But the root of everything that goes wrong in our life is poor communication or no communication. And right now as neighbors, that is exactly what we're facing. The land commission will not answer anything to us. The band member, the project manager refuses to reach out and speak to us. And the TNRD is saying we have to do certain things, which we fall out of the scope of that. We're all more than 150 meters because we live on acreages. And yet it seems like they're not paying any attention to reach out and talk to us. So this come down the pike 2 weeks ago when a sign went up on a property. And in that 2-week period, we're scrambling, trying to get answers to our questions before this goes to third and final approval. So our concern is we're not trying to be against this project. I want to make that crystal clear. We're questioning why the project is going where it is. Why is it not going to the Harper Ranch where it would be far more beneficial to the band members in terms of everything that they want to achieve by getting back to their grassroots in the land. And nobody seems to be asking the questions. And unfortunately, now it's coming dumped down onto us as neighbors, making us kind of look bad because we're questioning this because it can affect all of us. And we're not trying to be bad people. We're just trying to get answers, and everybody is running from answering our questions. And that is wrong. The optics of this absolutely suck. Sorry, but when we ask a question, anybody that's got an answer should be able to answer that question quite easily and give us an answer. If there is truth behind it, it shouldn't be, why would they be hiding or holding that back? But they are, right from the Land Commission to the band's project manager. When I asked them the same questions, can I get a copy of the report? We as neighbors, no communication, zero. And that is just fundamentally wrong. We're all here to educate ourselves, to learn, and to communicate. And communication to us has failed miserably. So we're not here to oppose it, but we asked if this could be adjourned, and we were told the meeting had to take place for provincial statute reasons. And all we're asking is that the directors look at what we have said in our emails, listen. I believe there's one or two other neighbors that were able to be there to speak as well about their concerns as well. So, and I guess what the further thing to add to all of this is that Canada adopted UNDRIP. UNDRIP is by the United Nations. BC is the only province in our country that has actually adopted this. The Land Commission is using UNDRIP for the approval process of this application in front of you right now. This is a very concerning thing. My 37-year career in the real estate industry and my knowledge of all of this is BC has a touring system which is the best in North America. Right now, it is in total jeopardy. When I spoke to the commission and asked the questions about this land, if it's the only land in the province that is going through this on an exemption from the ALR, and they refused to answer that. If this is a precedent-setting case, that any property in the ALR in our province is in total jeopardy, and this will be a precedent for it to say, we did it in Kamloops, we're going to do it everywhere else. The board members...
Mr. Beadle, I'm going to stop you there because it strikes me that you're drifting rather far from the focus of this public hearing, which is the property in question. We're not here to discuss or debate the merits or otherwise of UNDRIP. That is beyond the remit of this board and this public hearing. So if you could possibly wrap it up, because I do see that there are people in the room who have questions for you. Just a reminder for the board, particularly, that we are not here to debate. We are simply here to listen. Certainly, we can ask questions of any of the speakers for clarification, but we are here in quasi-judicial manner to listen objectively and impartially, not to enter into debate. Those restrictions do not, as far as I know, apply to those in the gallery, but I would remind people in the gallery that this is a public hearing for people to be heard. It is not a place to enter into debate with anyone who might be presenting. So Mr. Beadle, if you could perhaps wrap up, give us the 1 line or 10-second elevator pitch for your presentation, and then we have some people who I believe have questions.
Okay. Aside from the precedent setting thing here, I guess my question point blank is, why is this site being picked as opposed to up on the Harper Ranch site that they also currently own? And why is it this site? And if somebody can answer that question, it would be much appreciated, because then there wouldn't be any conflict with any neighbors. It would be clarity, and we would all be able to communicate better. So I would like to have somebody to be able to answer that for me.
Thank you. And I'm just looking to look at our corporate officer here to clarify or confirm whether that question is outside the scope of this public hearing, which is merely to look at the land use for this particular. Why that particular site was chosen above another is not the concern of this public hearing. Am I correct, Mr. Corporate Officer?
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this public hearing is to hear submissions about the application which is in front of you. So you should be considering what you consider the merits of the application that is being considered to amend the OCP and zoning bylaws. So that would generally be considered to be limited to the site itself and the interests in land that are raised by this site itself, rather than external matters to that.
Thank you very much. I see that Director Sarai had his hand up. You had a question for Mr. Beadle?
No, it wasn't for Mr. Beadle. I was, I'll pass for now, but put me on the list after, please.
All right. And yes, David? David, you wanted to have, you have a question or a comment?
Yeah, so first of all, I want to thank the gentleman for showing up today and making his position heard. Appreciate you, sir, for being able to share your opinions, and I'm glad that you're here to be able to get yourself educated on what we're doing as a community. It's really important that you open your heart and your mind for this education. And I don't want to get caught up in your politics in terms of what's going on here at this level. So what I'm going to say here is really important. You know, you asked the question around how did we come to the decision about this land? Well, we did a bunch of community engagements. And our community engagements, we started with a process of about 12 places. And in those processes, we started doing looking at feasibility studies. And with those community engagements, we ended up with 3 top sites. And from there, our community voted. Our elders voted, our youth voted, our families voted. And that's when the decision was made for the spot to be held at there. It comes from the community. That's how we came with the decision. The other part is around, you know, I'm glad that, you know, you make a suggestion around Harper Ranch. Well, you know, we don't tell you what to do in your politics or what to do on your land. We have our own land, and, you know, we really would like to, respect what we do with our land, and our business is our business. And for here is really important to understand that we want to build it close to the river because the river is our healing, water is medicine for us. And our elders and our families and stuff wanted it close to the river. And building up at Harper Ranch and stuff, as much as that sounds like a good idea, it's not a good idea for considering all the medicine with the water. The other part that's really important to understand, and I say this, is for us, it wasn't lightly taken. We will all work together as a community to get to this decision. And it was a long process. And one more thing you said about reaching out to the project manager, he doesn't have the authority to speak on our behalf. The Kamloops chief and council, the chief is our spokesperson, our PHR person. And so you have to understand we have a process that Derek, the project manager, has to follow. And as much as you reached out to him, unfortunately, that you could have wrote a letter to chief and council, and most likely we would have addressed it. But we're addressing it here now, and we're trying to do the respectful thing and show our respect to the room here and to all the regions of the TNRD. But honestly, we've worked really hard at getting to this process, and we've got the support of the federal government. We got the support of our nation and with the communities. So a lot of people are relying on this. And the other thing is not just going to be for the Kamloops Secwepemc, it's going to be for also other First Nations in our province and other people that went to residential school, but also the program is going to be for the residential school survivors, the ones that have been impacted by the generational survivors. This is a long-term process of healing. And so what we need to do is get the support of the people for projects like this, because there's going to be other ones in the province that are going to be done. And there hasn't been one healing center like this, sir. You're asking for a definition. This is another thing that you have to understand. This has never been done before at this level. And we're doing the right thing by we're supporting our survivors and our families to be able to help with that healing. And this is why we're breaking ground and we're developing something that has never been developed before, especially in this region. So it's going to be a resource that's going to help our children for many generations. Cook's Jam.
And sorry, Director, sorry, just for clarification, you want to reserve your comments until this comes back under item 7.1?
Yes, please.
Thank you very much. Mr. Kraus, was there anything you wanted to just explain about the process that Mr. Beadle commented on?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to assure the board and the public that this application followed standard procedure. The owners applied initially in May of 2023 for the Agricultural Land Commission application to allow a non-farm use approval. That application came to the board in June of 2023, and the board authorized it to go to the ALC. The ALC, the Land Commission, approved the Healing Center in September of this year, so a year and 4 months after receiving the application. And the land, just to be clear, was not taken out of the ALR. It was granted non-farm use approval for a specific portion of the property. And that's quite common. We receive and process non-farm use applications, and the ALC makes those approvals. So it's not precedent setting in that way. With the ALC approval in place, that's when staff were able to bring forward this zoning and OCP amendment on October 17th. And that's where the board authorized the public hearing, and which is today. So it's a little over a month since the board looked at and gave first and second reading. The bylaws were advertised in accordance with our procedures bylaw, in accordance with the Local Government Act. I agree, we used the Chase Sunflower, and we had to do so in order to meet the legal obligations of 2 consecutive newspapers. The local newspaper was just starting up, and we can't meet the act with that paper. So in future, do we want to use the Kamloops paper for things that are around Kamloops? Absolutely, but the timing of this one didn't enable us to do it. So between the notice sign on the property, the public hearing ad on our website, the public hearing ad in the Chase Sunflower, and then mail out to owners within 150 meters, which is the procedure in the TND procedures bylaw. That was the notification process. So again, all standard, and it led to our public hearing today. Thank you.
And the Chase Sunflower, is that a weekly publication?
Not sure if it's weekly or bi-weekly, but it meets our legal obligations.
Director Lepso, you would know.
Weekly.
Thank you. And the New Kamloops newspaper, I understand if it continues, and I'm sure we all hope it does, is a monthly. So that means that 2 consecutive notices in 2 consecutive papers would be appearing 4 to 5 weeks apart, which would considerably slow down the process in terms of public hearings.
Yes, I'll just add that under the act, we can't advertise the second more than 10 days before the public hearing. So we also have to ensure that we fall within no less than 3 and no more than 10 days. So we have a kind of a tight window that we have to get in, and that's just the process. We don't have months in advance to advertise a hearing and then hold it later. So again, standard procedure was followed.
Vice Chair Smith?
I just want to note that Mr. Beadle is online to make his representation, so the process worked.
Thank you for that. Does anyone else, either here or online, have any further submissions to make? Anyone online? Mr. Beadle, is that your hand up there? Just wave it if it is. All right, sir, would you like to make another comment?
Chair Roden, I don't believe Mr. Beadle knows he is on mute.
You're on mute, Mr. Beadle. You'll have to unmute on your end. No, you're still muted.
Am I unmuted now?
Yep, there we can hear you now.
Okay. With reference to the one speaker just said that the system worked, I beg to differ. If we had not seen a sign on the property, none of us neighbors would have had any knowledge of this application whatsoever. Because by the 150-meter guidelines, we were not notified. So it was only because of a sign. So in a 2-week period of time, we find all of this is coming down on us rapidly. And the TNRD did not reach out to any of us because of the way the regulations are of 150 meters. In a rural property setting, we do not live within 150 meters. We're not on a city lot. So the communication here is what is lacking critically. We have no idea. Nobody, the TNRD, the band, nobody has come forward to us to even be open to an open house so that we can be educated about what it is that they want to have on this property. So no, the system is failing us. And all we asked for was an open house, somebody to tell us, explain to us, like these elders have, what they want. But we have not been given that opportunity.
The sign is part of our process. So if you happen to see the sign on the property, the intention of that sign is so the people in the area know what's happening. Therefore, it worked.
Well, then it worked because we reached out to the Land Commission and the TNRD and to the project manager, and nobody answered our question. So how can you say it worked? We've had 2 weeks in order to try to understand what is coming down the pike, and we still don't know. All we know is it's a wellness center. Nobody has bothered to have the courtesy or decency to say, have an open house to the direct neighbors and say, hey, here's what we're doing and this is what we would like, just like these elders have just done. That would have been wonderful, but we were not even given that opportunity.
Thank you. And Director Sarai, I believe you do want to speak now.
Thank you. And I know, Madam Chair, thank you. I know we're not supposed to be debating. I'm just a little bit puzzled from Mr. Beach speaking that he hasn't been notified and he doesn't know what a wellness center and a healing center is. And the phone calls he's made, nobody knows what they are. And I think Kalipala Dave emphasized it correctly. Nobody on the other end of the line in Victoria should know what it is because they didn't live it. They're not the ones that are going to be utilizing the healing center. What you heard today from the speakers is what you should be relaying your mindset on. What is it that they are trying to accomplish here? And hearing the elders, if it's your first time, I'm just curious that had that not had any effect on you of what this healing center is about?
Thank you, Director Sarai. I believe that one of the purposes of the public hearing is to have questions such as yours answered, Mr. Beadle, and I believe that we have had an explanation. Whether you accept it or not is another thing, but we have had now an explanation of what a healing center is, and if the board has any questions about that, then we do still have people here who can answer it. So do any board members have any questions about the proposed healing center? Director Grenier?
Thank you, Chair. White. Thank you for coming and sharing your understanding of what's going on, sharing that with us and the elders. And I've heard that we have different processes in our levels of government. I heard you say just recently that it wouldn't be expected that this fellow respond to these questions. It would be the chief's response. And I understand that the chief has just been reelected. And so we have the issue raised is process. We have a process in the TNRD that we notify people at 150 meters, and maybe that needs to be reviewed at some point in the future too. I'm just wondering if the information that you shared with us today, if we were able to arrange some kind of a meeting in the very near future so that the neighbors could hear directly from your chief or the appointed spokesperson, and then we visit it with that knowledge of that information. Do you think, Dave, that would be a constructive step if that was something that the parties thought would be useful?
Yeah, so we have to do our own internal first too, as we move forward. but that's something that we could do strategically planning, is to be able to do that. I don't want to call it an open house, but at the same time, we can have a meeting to inform. And it's not about debating or anything, it's about educating. And so, but we have to do our own internal process. I have to work with the managers of the sorry. I can't say it right now. Yeah. Because my heart's going 100 miles an hour, that's why. And I'm just being honest about that. But, you know, we have to do our internal, we have to work with our managers. We have to work, and it's part of our strategic plan to move forward. And, you know, for myself, I see it as a possibility, but at the same time, I don't want to be in a big debate and trying to move this project somewhere else, because that's not what we're intending to do.
Does anyone else want to make a public submission? Do any other board members have any questions of anyone? Director Houghton.
This is not directed at the proponents. I know Director Greenray touched on this. Is there a way for the future that we can improve this whole process for these rural properties so this does not happen again? I don't know if this is the right time to ask this, but obviously the gentleman speaking is not happy with the process that we have gone through. Is there a better process we look at in the future so we don't get caught in this again? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kraus?
Through the chair, yes. So I'm not sure which part of the process, but if it's like the mail out distance, for example, then sure, that's something that can be looked at through a separate process, and we could look at amending the development procedures bylaw. I will say the board did change it 4 years ago. There is an opportunity to have 300-meter radius when the lots are of a larger size. This property fell into the 150-meter radius. But remember, no matter what number you set, there will be people outside of that that are missed. So for example, the gentleman speaking, Mr. Beadle, his property is 1.2 kilometers from this property. So even if you set it at 1 kilometer buffer, he wouldn't have been notified. So at what point or what distance? And that's the debate that the board had 4 years ago. What's the right number? If it's 1 kilometer, if it's 2 kilometers, sometimes we're notifying hundreds of people depending on the community. Not that there's anything wrong with that, it just changed the process. So I think that should be debated separately when we look at the development procedures bylaw.
Director Morris.
Thank you, Kuchum. I wanted to specifically thank you all for being here today. I have had an opportunity to have some individual meetings, which I genuinely was appreciative of, to gain some understanding. And I just want to again say thank you to all of you who have had that opportunity to have some exploration on this. I think there's a learning and a sharing that will continue to go forward, and I look forward to the next steps, whatever they may be. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to call one more time for first submissions. All right, I'm going to call a second time for further representations. This is for anyone in the room, anyone online, calling a second time for representations. Calling a third and final time for representations from the public. I see no hands. I'd like to thank everyone online and here in the room who came today. And I would especially like to thank those elders who very courageously came forward and shared their very personal stories. Thank you, Kuchtem. All right, there being no further speakers, I declare this public hearing closed. If anyone has no interest in staying for the rest of a Thompson-Nicola Regional District Board meeting, we will not be offended at all if you decide to leave the room. Oh, so then people stand up and start moving towards the doors. I see. No, thank you very much for coming. If anyone wants to stay, they certainly can. All right, well, thank you, everyone. I call to order this meeting of the Thompson-Nicola Regional District for Thursday, November 21st, 2024. The TNRD acknowledges that we connect with many First Nations across our vast regional district, and today we are located on the Kamloops to Secwepemc territory, situated within the unceded ancestral lands of the Secwepemc Nation. The TNRD appreciates the partnership that we have with the Kamloops to Secwepemc, and we respect the territory and land upon which we gather today. Chair's announcements. You'll have noticed that the flags are at half mast. This is in honor of former BC Premier John Horgan, who died at the age of 65 on November 12th following a battle with cancer. Mr. Horgan served as BC's 36th Premier from July, 2017 to November 2022. And he was Canada's ambassador to Germany since December 2023. He was the member of the Legislative Assembly for the constituency of Langford-Wandafuka and its predecessors from 2005 to 2023. The longtime politician was living in Berlin with his wife Ellie while serving as Canada's ambassador to Germany. He died at the BC Cancer Centre in Victoria at Royal Jubilee Hospital after returning to the province for end-of-life care. Flags will be flown at half-mast until sunset on the day of the funeral or memorial service, date to be determined, in honor of his memory. Today, we have alternate Director Beppel here from the City of Kamloops. Welcome. Library update. The Thompson-Nicola Regional Library is thrilled, it says here, thrilled to participate in the downtown Kamloops Santa Claus Parade. Look for our mobile library on November 24th at 4 p.m., where, in partnership with the Film Commission, we will be highlighting films shot locally in conjunction with the parade theme of holiday movie magic. We're excited to celebrate the holiday season and together promote the region of BC's best. We hope to see you there. The TNRD will formally sign a memorandum of understanding with High Bar First Nation on December 5th, 2024. The event will take place in Clinton from noon until 2 p.m. And we are very excited to be able to be advancing our First Nations partnerships. BC Transit was scheduled to be a delegation at today's meeting. Staff have followed up with BC Transit and they will be coordinating a visit or delegation in 2025. A reminder that expression of interest forms in committees, both internal and external, are due by December 2nd. There are copies available at each of your spaces for you to fill out and give to Justin before leaving today's meeting. Upcoming meetings and events, deep breath here. Wednesday, December 11th at 10 a.m. we have Utility Systems Committee. Wednesday, December 11th at 1:30 we have the Finance Committee. Thursday, December 12th, we will be having a hospital district board meeting. We will be having the board holiday luncheon and we will be having a regular board meeting at 1:30. And then on, Friday the 13th, just saw that, 9 a.m. we'll be having a committee of the whole meeting. Noon we'll be having the TNRD Long Service Awards luncheon. And at 1:30 p.m. there will be a boundary review committee meeting. How many employees? 230 years of service to the TNRD, I believe, amongst the employees long service this year. Today, in your blue folders, you will see regular mail and some letters of support re-invasive plant management on Crown's lands that Director Hayward will be bringing up under new business. In the event of an emergency, if the fire alarm sounds, please leave by the safest exit doors, either at the rear of the room or the main entrance to my left. Go down the staircase, exit the building, and assemble in the staff car parking lot at the rear of the Paramount Theater across 5th Street. Please do not run or use the elevators. If you have mobility problems, please tell the General Manager of Legislative Services with his hand raised, and he will assist you. All right, are there any additions or additions to deletions from the agenda? No. All right, we have the minutes of the regular board meeting held on November 7th, 2024. Thank you, Director Ranta, seconded by Director Blackwell. Are there any errors or omissions? All in favor?
Okay.
Anyone opposed? That is carried. Item 7.1, bylaws from public hearings, South Thompson Valley and Pinnetan OCP Amendment Bylaw number 2863 and zoning amendment bylaw number 2864, 844 Minor Road, east of Kamloops in electoral area P. We have 4 separate recommendations. They do have to be moved and seconded separately. Thank you very much, Director Blackwell, seconded by Director Thorpe. Thank you. Any discussion on recommendation 1? Director Sarai, have you, okay. Director Getz.
I gotta put my hand way up there. Just a couple of things. In Merritt, we had our flags at half-mast for Maurice Sinclair, who passed away as the TRC representative and was very important in that position. If I may make a comment, Dave, I appreciate, and the elders. One of the comments that you made, this is the first time this is being done. In Merritt, we're in the same situation with the Stuick's rewilding of the Pine Street, where the 5 bands are now leading that. It's the first time it's ever happened. And the city is just, we've taken a step back and we're working with the First Nations to get this done. It's a very exciting time. It's the first time that's been done as well. So for myself, growing up in the 60s and a colonial, which I am, I have always been learning, and I think this is a great idea. I think it's a great thing to have. So we'll support it, no problem.
Thank you very much. Anyone else have any comments on recommendation 1? All right, all those in favor? Anyone opposed? Thank you, that's carried. Move 2, that was Director Newstater, seconded by Director Bass. Any discussion on recommendation 2? Director Grenier?
I have a question, and we have 3 more resolutions to deal with. Would there be any value in deferring the remaining 3 or portions of the remaining 3 to the next board meeting to give the proponent and the neighbors an opportunity to have that conversation and then come back at the next meeting to approve or deliberate these 3 points? I'm wondering if somebody could give me some direction on that.
Corporate Officer Lois?
Thank you, Chair, through you to Director Grenier. I think the concern that we would have if the direction from the board was simply to defer these items is that it increases the risk of new information being heard and considered, and then that can make the any further votes unsafe if somebody can assert that members heard additional information after the public hearing. So if that was your wish, then I think what we would advise is that you identify what new information actually is desired, and then specifically seek an additional public hearing, because then you could ensure that the further votes were safe. The critical thing is to ensure that the last time you hear new information is at the public hearing.
Thank you for that clarification. I wasn't so much thinking about the public hearing process or the board deliberating what it has heard. I was thinking more along the lines to give the 2 proponents or the 2 folks who we've heard their processes haven't sort of followed, give them an opportunity to have a conversation. The chief designating who it is that would speak on behalf of the band to the proponents or to the neighboring community so that they could share information, and that we would, as a board, be able to deal with this at the next meeting, having given those folks an opportunity to have the consultation. I'm just wondering if you had a perspective on that.
Thank you, and again, through the chair. I think from our standpoint, what we would say is essentially that either following further conversations, the board would be then informed that, say, the 2 sides had conversations and were either content or still discontent or whatever, in which case that might represent, again, new information and engage the concerns they had raised before. or there would be no conversations, in which case there would be no change to the situation you're currently in. So I think the advice that I would give you on this is that it sounds like if the board is minded to adopt the bylaw at this point, it doesn't mandate any action, it simply permits it. So conversations outside of this boardroom could still take place between the applicants and local residents if they wish to after that point. But again, if the board was informed as to the outcome of those conversations, we would probably be advising that sounds like new information about community contentment and view on the thing, which would be new information that you might want to reconsider at another public hearing. So although I appreciate you're not asking for more new information to come back to you before you make the decision, it sounds like it's essentially irrelevant to what you're considering. So it shouldn't have an impact on whether you feel you could vote for or against it today. And if you wanted to postpone it, then that would likely be because it was essentially, it sounds like the issues you're raising are outside of the board's concerns. So I don't think it should be something which affects your ability to vote on it today. And if it does affect your ability to vote on it today, then that probably means you'd be wanting to have another hearing.
I do have a number of people. I have Directors Houghton, Newstater, Sow, and Sarai. Director Houghton.
Oh, I just want to thank the proponents for adding your agricultural component on the land. I know Mr. Edwards and Mr. Kerr prior to Mr. Edwards grew a lot of crops there. And to have your healing with the horses, I had one of your band members on Cattle Drive a few years, you probably know who I'm thinking of, showed us on how to heal with horses. And, you know, but I highly recommend that you folks somehow can touch base with the gentleman that spoke and that on your own personal terms without us. And I think it would be very beneficial because you are neighbors, and I've been in the ranching business too. And I know your most important allies are your neighbors. So those three things, I'll be supporting this motion, but I'm also asking Dave that you and staff meet with the others at your terms. Thank you.
Director Newstater.
Thank you, Chair. As the mover of the recommendation, I have no interest in postponing this. I think we have the information that we need to make an informed decision. I fully trust TTES as an independent government to manage those relationships, move through the conversations. They're skilled in those areas. I think they've heard the comments in the room, but at this point, that seems well outside the purview of the board to decide how to manage relationship or what that looks like. We have total confidence in their ability to do that. So again, as the mover, I have no interest in moving this aside, and I don't see any value in bringing it back, and I could not support this more strongly. We can read at the beginning a land acknowledgement every single time we sit in this room, but it means nothing if we can't support something as critical as this that could change history and begin to right in small ways the historic wrongs. And I don't see any value in stopping this process at this board.
Thank you, Director Sow.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I certainly appreciate Director Granier's, emphasis on communication between communities. However, with that being said, I think we should focus on the proponents of the application and our expert staff's, Mr. Kraus, advice, pointing out that legislatively, all of our required process has been reached. And as Vice Chair Smith said, the process had worked. We had communication today. So I think we should focus on what is within our authority. I think it would be moving beyond our authority to require proponents to do processes that are outside of our jurisdiction. Just my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Sarai.
My question and comments have been shared.
You, Director Getz.
I guess my question for Mr. Kraus and Mr. Lawis, were all the processes followed as correctly to get us here?
Yeah, through the chair,
Excellent.
yes.
That's all I need to hear. Thank you very much.
Any other questions or comments? We are on recommendation 2 that zoning amendment bylaw number 2864 be read a third time. It has been duly moved and seconded. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor?
Yay.
Anyone opposed? Carried. All right. Who moved it? Director Smith. And who seconded it? Director Thorpe. Thank you. All right. All right. Do we have any discussion on recommendation number 3? No, I'm afraid not during this portion. Okay. Any comments on number 3? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Carried. That was Director Bass and seconded by Director Sarai. Thank you. Any discussion on number 4? No discuss, no hands. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? That is carried. Thank you very much. All right, we move on to item 8.1, delegations. We have building infraction and expired building permit in electoral area L. Is there anyone here to speak to this item? Just give everyone a moment. Thank you very much, Cookstem. Bill's not paid back. All right, so is anyone here to speak to item 8.1 regarding 3800 Neds Creek Road in Pritchard? No. Anyone here to speak to item 8.2, building infraction on 1660 Alexander Road, Birch Island? And is anyone here to speak to 8.3, building infraction between Loon Lake Road and Clinton in electoral area E? No. All right, we move on to item 9.1, building infraction electoral area L. We do have a recommendation. Director Ranta, seconded by Director Thorpe. Any discussion on the recommendation? No. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? That is carried. Item 9.2, electoral area A, building infraction. Director Thorpe, seconded by Director Blackwell. Discussion on this item. Director Sao.
Thank you, Madam Chair, to staff. I just want to clarify, is the manufactured home itself permitted and legal? Thank you.
Through the chair, good question. I don't know off the top of my head. But the notice would cover this infraction and I don't think it was regarding the manufactured home. Is the addition and the work done around that. So addition and alterations, whether the original building had a permit or not, I'm not sure, but the focus is what we caught, which is the addition to the manufactured home.
Anyone else have any questions or comments on 9.2? On the question, all those in favor? Thank you. And Director Kerslake, if you could just verbally give your yay or nay, please, that would be awesome.
Perfect. Can you hear me?
We certainly can.
Okay, good.
Okay. 9.3, building infraction, no civic address between Loon Lake Road and Clinton. Director Middleton, seconded by Director Smith. Thank you. Any discussion on item 9.3? All those in favor?
Yay.
Anyone opposed? Carried. 10.1, zoning amendment bylaw number 2765 in electoral area A. We do have a recommendation. Thank you, Director Ranta, seconded by Director Sao. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor?
Yay.
Anyone opposed? Carried. Item 11.1, development variant permit application DVP 124 in electoral area J. Director Grenier making that motion, seconded by Director Thorpe. Any discussion on the approval of this item? All those in favor?
Yay.
Anyone opposed? Carried. Item 11.2, temporary use permit in electoral area L. Director Thorpe making that motion. Thank you. Seconded by Director Hayward. Discussion? Director Houghton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Kraus, would it be in alliance with the terms of what they're asking for? Being that this a proposed project, I know it's already got 200 trailers on it now, being on the edge of some of the primest grasslands in the country, I would like to see an invasive species weed management control program. It seems like when these, I call these light industrial things, are on the fringe, nothing seems to happen, and then the problems start, and you just have to look across the creek to the trailer park that's there. It's, in fact, I was going to ask them to change their name to Knapweed Knoll, but I think it should be fair that we ask them to have a weed management plan in their temporary use permit.
Through the chair, yes. So the TUP has a number of conditions. So if the board would like to add that as a condition, it's not too late to do so. We just have to get the wording right. You're calling it an invasive weed management plan? Okay. Okay. So I think we would need, and I'll look to Mr. Lois about this, but I'm not sure if we can add that to this motion currently, or if we want to have that separate.
Thank you. So my advice on this, so the existing recommendation is that the TUP be issued. So you could, you could either do it as a proposed amendment to the resolution, followed by doing it as amended. Or, sorry, I'm just going through the TUP and realizing we need to make a slight amendment to it anyway, as we list the condition number 8, 9, 10, 9. So that already needs to turn into a new 11. But yeah, we would then suggest that the temporary use permit TUP 74 be issued subject to the conditions and locations set out in the TUP, with the addition of a invasive weed management plan. Probably easiest to just read that out, because the TUP without that was attached to the agenda. So
All right. So do we need an amendment for that, or is this getting into, is this friendly amendment, or is this amendment we need to vote on it?
that's quite friendly, I think.
It was said in a very friendly fashion, so I think. All right, I'm just going to look around the room. Is everyone happy with that as a friendly amendment? That the motion stand as amended? All right, thank you very much. All right, any other discussion on this? All those in, whoop, sorry. Director Blackwell.
Right, I'm a doctor now. Sorry, we're adding something to this, and I am in support of the idea of a invasive plant management plan. But what is that? Is there a definition of that? Is there, I mean, what are we going to, what level of, is there a standard for the TNRD for that? Because are we inflicting something that could be a $3,000 thing or a $50,000 thing on this person by adding this amendment?
Through the chair, no, that's a good question. I mean, I think they would have to hire a professional who would be able to do that plan. The cost of that is unknown right now, certainly. If the owner pushed back on that, then they could, I suppose, appeal that. We would have to come back to the board with that through another process. But yes, they wouldn't know of this requirement because they weren't aware of it and they're not here now.
Director Houghton.
I think at least what I'm asking for, if they've got invasive weeds that break out, control them. I don't think you need a plan as much as if you got knapweed, which is right next door, but you don't want it on the other side of them out into that open bunch grass, please look after your weeds.
So you're asking them to be vigilant more than anything. And I think particularly given that these are wheeled vehicles that have been on highways which have picked up or could potentially have picked up anything and be spreading it everywhere. So if we were to ask them to, oh, Mr. Vieira?
We're just brainstorming over here. We think it'd be reasonable that that the TNRD could approve a plan that they develop themselves, and our invasive plant management coordinator can review and approve whether it's a reasonable plan to monitor and treat, I think is what Director Houghton is getting at.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions or comments? Director Lipso?
And I do my usual, I always have a problem when I look at the agenda and again, I need to think it through with my dog. And, when I come to a decision and then we come to a meeting and then something's changed. And it doesn't give me, and I don't think it's fair to staff to all of a sudden come up with something, and even the proponents aren't here to represent the situation. And so I'm just always concerned when we bring up things that I don't see are on the agenda. Thanks.
Thank you. No, I understand what you're saying, Director Lipso. A lot of people like time to consider it, go back, have a first pass, and go back through and go look again, at it more depth, let it sink in. So I don't know if there's any way around that. Things will come up just sort of spur of the moment that we can't anticipate. But I think that this being perhaps a first, having an invasive plant control condition on a TUP, this might then be something that we will see more of going forward, so that we will see it in advance rather than it being added at a meeting. Mr. Kraus, is this something that we have done before?
Through the chair, I'm not aware of that. No, that's one of the things that we get asked often is why do we keep using these TUPs? Sometimes it's not a temporary use, but it's zoning by permit. So you're able to add these conditions. The hard part is for staff to predict all the potential conditions that might be desired. But it's also okay to, maybe not in this case, but moving forward, to not move forward with the recommendation and instead go back to the applicant, work that out and bring the application back to the board. It's also okay to take a pause there. It's not that it has to be adopted the same meeting. That said, we had to do advertising, so we'd have to redo the advertising and the notification if we go back out.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions or comments? Director Middleton.
I'm more inclined to say that this should be brought back to us, even if it involves more advertising. I think it's unfair to the proponent to suddenly add stuff into their application that they are either unaware of or may not be prepared to still proceed with the application. It's kind of like going to, a meeting or like say, going for a mortgage and they tell you to bring all these documents and this is what you need. And then, so you take all that in and then they say, oh, well, kind of, we'd like you to also bring this. It wasn't originally asked for. Now go out, get this, bring it back to us, and then we'll, sort of reconsider. And then you go back and then they still want one more document. I think that we should either deny this and go back and add stuff in, or we need to pass it like it is. But to amend it and start asking for more information than what the original application required, I think that's a bit of a slippery slope of just continuing to put, more requests in when it wasn't part of the original request. Just my thought.
All right, so we have accepted it as a friendly amendment. So right now it's the TUP with the addition of the invasive plant component. So I guess the cleanest way would be to defeat this motion as amended. And then I think we've got a huddle going on here. So I think someone is going to tell me.
Sorry, Chair, I have a horrible question. You asked me a question while I was discussing the noxious weeds bylaw with Mr. Vieira.
Okay, so what's that?
Mr. Vieira and I were just discussing the invasive plant control regulatory bylaw and the noxious weeds bylaw, which does apply itself to Area L, but I have not gone through that bylaw in a fine-tooth comb. But I was just kneeling and having a quick chat with him while you were speaking, so I'm afraid I missed the entire question.
The entire question was, we have now had a concern raised about the board amending the TUP without the proponent's knowledge and this coming back to them as a potentially unwelcome surprise. So the question now is, if it was the board's decision that they would prefer to have this not be a surprise to the proponents, would it be cleanest and easiest to defeat the motion as amended? And then what would our next steps be?
It would be completely acceptable to vote down this recommendation, at which point they would have no TUP and they would be able to come forward and apply for a new one. Or alternatively, you could vote to postpone it to a subsequent meeting, in which case Mr. Kraus would need to provide the requisite public notice, etc. So if you were inclined to do that, then considering the fairly short time between now and the December meeting, I'm not sure if there would be time to post notice for that. There would not be, so that would be at a meeting in 2025. Well, whatever happens, it's a meeting in 2025. But if you were voting to postpone it to a specific meeting, we would definitely want to pull out the calendar and make sure you are picking a meeting that we know is in there. So it might be cleanest to simply vote this recommendation down in its entirety, and then they could reapply.
Director Blackwell?
Because that was a friendly amendment, if we defeated this motion with the friendly amendment, could we not just move the original motion right afterwards, if that was the desire of the board?
Sorry, through the chair to Director Blackwell, the really weird thing about the way friendly amendments work here is because it wasn't a amendment that was voted on. So if, say, the amendment was moved, seconded, then you discuss, debate the amendment, you can vote on the amendment. Then if it fails, you have the original motion as it was. Whereas a friendly amendment is simply accepted and incorporated to, so then you just have the single vote on the substantive motion.
Thank you. I just needed it said out loud.
I've got Directors Sarai and Getz.
Just a question.
Did anyone else have their hands up? I'm sorry, I might have missed a hand. All right, Director Sarai and then Director Getz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. TUP, is there a fee involved in that? So if we cancel this, they got to reapply, will they have to pay another fee? And that's my first question.
Through the chair, there is a fee, but I'm not sure that we would have to charge it. I'm not sure that's a brand new application. I think the idea would be we would re-advertise with a new condition if that was the goal.
And my other, just thinking out loud and talking to my friend here beside me, is if the temporary use permit is that important to them and they want to move forward, if we withdraw this and send it forward with another requirement, in my thinking, they're gonna say, yes, we'll do this. This is just a heads up that if you want the TUP, this is what we have to do. It's give them a 2-week advance notice. I don't think they're gonna say, no, we're not gonna do the TUP because we don't want to take care of the invasive weeds. I think it's, in my opinion, they would just do it because we required them to do it now.
Director Getz, then Director Thorpe.
So just because I want to make this go a little longer, would it be okay if the mover of the friendly amendment decided not to move the friendly amendment? And we could just get to it? I'm just wondering, because I just like doing that stuff.
Corporate Officer Lois.
Through the chair, I can advise Director Getz that a staff member was asking that question mere seconds before he did, and my reply was not something I would want entered into the minutes. I don't believe we have any rules on that, and this is one of the reasons why I blinked twice when I saw friendly amendments in the TNID procedure bylaw in the first place, because they are intended to be simpler, but they can make life so much more complicated. I would probably suggest that it's the kind of thing, if the chair and the board are so minded, then you can just do it, because why not? But we're starting to leave the cleanly written rules that we have behind.
Director Thorpe.
So my question is this, that we would essentially be delaying this going forward. Now, if we put it forward with the friendly amendment and the proponent pushed back, like didn't want to do it, he could then come to the board and say, hey, I don't like this. Can we go back to the original TUP, or he could try it and dispute what we've done. So essentially, if we went through with the friendly amendment and he was agreeable, it would move faster than if we do any of the above, right?
Through the chair potentially, but then the onus is back on the owner to, I don't think they can just make an appeal. I think they, at that point, they would need to apply, going back to the previous question, and make their case why they don't want that condition in the permit. So it would cause delays is the answer, yes.
Okay, supplemental. So it would cause delays if he had to come back, but if he agrees with it, it moves forward. So in a sense, we have the opportunity to move this quicker for him by going through with the friendly amendment, correct?
Correct. Then you would have a TUP and with that additional condition, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Director Houghton, then Director Newstater, and then unless anyone has anything material, I'm going to call the
I would have
question.
thought this is such a long prolonged deal, just to add a little clause, I probably wouldn't have done it, but I'd withdraw this and I'll just go down the driveway, open the gate and go talk to the gentleman. I mean, geez, I thought something was so simple, but probably something like the public hearing we had, but I'll drive down the driveway, open the gate and go talk to the dude. Thanks. I'll withdraw it.
Can we withdraw that, the amendment, and just go back to the TUP as it was?
If it's the will of the board, then I will say strongly yes.
I believe we have unanimity on this point. Director Newstater, did you still have something you wanted to say?
I was going to ask Director Hunt how important this was to him, if he could just go open the gate and have a conversation. So I am more than satisfied.
All right, so we are back to the original TUP with no emendations whatsoever. Does anyone have any other questions or comments? All those in favor?
Yay.
Anyone opposed? That is carried. Yay, indeed, Director Kerslake. 11.3, we have a non-adhering residential use in Quilchena, electoral area M, a place that we were all able to see during our out-of-town tour in August.
Move the recommendation.
Director Blackwell, seconded by Director Laird. Thank you very much. Any discussion? I was going to say, does anyone want to make an amendment? But then I thought, no, probably too soon, too soon. All right, on the question then, all those in favor?
Yay.
Anyone opposed? That is carried. Item 12.1, we have the verbal report from CAO Hildebrand.
Thank you, Chair Roden, and good afternoon, Board of Directors. Just got a few updates for you today. Firstly, to Kamloops District Quebec MOU and flag raising ceremony. As we all know, this is an amazing event that we're all very proud of. TTS and TNRD signed that memorandum on October 21st. That's the blanket that's hanging on our wall here in the boardroom. This represents the second MOU the TNRD has signed with an Indigenous community this year, and our second picture commemorating the signing to be hung on the board wall, which is already up there. We also raised the TTS flag at our civic building, which will be a permanent reminder of whose land we are privileged to reside on. We have a meeting scheduled with leadership of TTS and TNRD coming up next week after the election, so we're excited to do that. We're all very proud of this important milestone and look forward to building our relationship and working together throughout the region. As everyone's aware, we have 25 First Nations and we have a lot of work ahead of us. Currently 2 are done and a lot of work ahead of us. So great news there. Second topic was just the budget, quick budget update. We had a successful budget session over the last few weeks with presentations from our departments, along with a complete overview from our CFO, Carla Fox. Now that the board has had a chance to take a close look at the budget in our workshop, we put out a news release asking for the public to review our budget and provide their feedback. There has been some local media coverage on this as well, and our staff have been getting questions through our online feedback form. Our infographics have been updated on the 2025 webpage as well, so people are certainly clicking through those. We continue to encourage people to use our tnrd.ca budget 2025 website for all questions that they may have. We're also encouraging people to contact us directly with budget questions and to contact you as directors. Staff will be bringing the formal provisional budget to the board on December 13th meeting with further discussion and feedback from the board. Number 3 was just the board calendar was adopted and approved by the board. This schedule has been sent out and communicated. These will be added to your calendars so that we're fully aligned throughout the year. I believe Livia has already started doing that. A few highlights this year is our out-of-town board meeting, which will be visiting beautiful Clinton and electoral area E and stops along the way. UBCM, SILGA, FCM are all scheduled and planning is already taking place. We have a January workshop to talk about the midway point of our strategic plan, perhaps some training and development, and also another look at our code of conduct as far as an update goes. That'll be happening in January. Our many committee meetings are all scheduled as well, and participation as board members will be determined in January. And so we're locked and loaded for 2025, which is exciting. The next topic was just staff long service awards that Chair Roden mentioned earlier. We have several team members celebrating some significant milestones. This event will take place on December 13th, just following the committee of the whole, and the board is certainly invited for that short acknowledgement with 24 staff members and 230 years of service with the TNRD being acknowledged. So congratulations to all those being recognized. And then finally, one additional point is I'd like to congratulate Nicole Young, one of our staff members from our GIS team. She's been invited to be on the ICI Board of Directors for British Columbia. The ICI Society stands for the Integrated Cadastral Information Society of BC, or ICI Society for short. This recognition is not only a significant honor for Nicole, but also has a favorable timing for the TNRD in relation to the next generation 911 rollout. Membership on this board of directors is likely to come with valuable insights that will further enhance the TNRD's readiness for a successful transition to NG 911. ICIS is actively involved in implementing NG 911 in British Columbia. The society, along with GOBC and ECOM 911, work together to ensure local governments and other stakeholders are prepared for this important transition. It involves providing GIS data layers, civic addressing, emergency service boundaries, and road centerline support to support accurate call routing and emergency response. So please join me in congratulating Nicole. We are very proud of her. And I'd like to just pass over to Corbin for a quick update on 3 quick topics that he has.
Thank you. As Chair Roden mentioned, we'll be signing our 3rd MOU with an Indigenous community this year. So the High Bar MOU is attached in your agenda later on to be approved for signing on December 5th. We are extremely excited that we've been able to draft and sign 3 MOUs in 1 year. As Chair Roden also mentioned, BC Transit that was supposed to be at this board meeting as a delegation. They've been going through some staffing changes. The person that we've been dealing with was on covering a maternity leave. The person that she was covering for is now returning back. There's also additional conversations going on with the senior leadership team of BC Transit as to how to proceed with the Thompson-Nicola Regional Transit Service. And so there will be more coming to the board in early 2025 regarding that. And then just a quick update on provincial advocacy. So this Monday of this week, the new cabinet was sworn in. The TNRD issued a press release on Tuesday morning outlining our advocacy priorities, hopefully trying to influence the mandates letters that will be forthcoming from the provincial government. There's been many changes to ministries that the TNRD deals with directly, including the Ministry of Municipal Affairs now being back in with the Ministry of Housing and the Ministry of Infrastructure being removed from the Ministry of Transportation. We are looking to schedule meetings in early 2025 with the chair, as well as provincial ministers to try and take our advocacy beyond UBCM, which is something that we've been talking about for quite some time, and wanting to make sure that we can get the majority of our advocacy priorities across the board and successful, especially when it comes to advocating for increased funding in budget 2025 for projects that are important to the TNRD. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Any questions for CAO Hildebrand or Mr. Kelly? All right, further to that report, I would like to make a motion that the TNRD send reply letters to the Ministries of Municipal Affairs, Emergency Management and Climate Readiness, Forests, Agriculture, Transportation and Transit and Infrastructure to request meetings with the new ministers in early 2025. Second, Director Bass, thank you very much. Discussion? Director, no, oh, I just didn't see you in time, I'm sorry. Any questions, comments? All those in favor?
Yay.
Anyone opposed? That is carried. All right, we move on to 12.1.2, the corporate asset management strategy and roadmap. We have a recommendation. Director Bass, thank you. Seconded by Director Sarai. Any discussion on this item? No? On the question, all those in favor?
Yay.
Anyone opposed? Carried. 12.1.3, new asset management position. There is a recommendation.
Second.
Director Bass, seconded by Vice Chair Smith. Discussion. Questions? Comments? On the motion, all those in favor?
Yay.
Anyone opposed? That is carried. 12.1.4, Black Pines Community Water System Security Issuing Bylaw. We have three separate recommendations. Director Ranta, seconded by Director Morris. Discussion? All those in favor?
Yay.
Opposed? Carried. Motion number 2. Director Thorpe, seconded by Director Houghton. Discussion? All those in favor?
Yay.
Opposed? Carried. Third recommendation. Director Ranta, seconded by Director Smith. Sure, he says. All right, great. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor?
Yay.
Anyone opposed? Carried. 12.1.5 Black Pines Community Water System Parcel Tax Bylaw. 3 recommendations again. Director Houghton, seconded by Director Thorpe. Discussion? All those in favor?
Yay.
None opposed, carried. That Director Newstader moving recommendation number 2, seconded by Director Morris. No discussion. All those in favor? Opposed,
Yay.
carried. Number 3. Director Hayward, seconded by Vice Chair Smith. Discussion? All those in favor?
Yay.
Opposed, carried. 12.1.6, Dangerous Dog Control Services Expansion. We do have this report for information. Is there a motion to come out of this? Director Smith, I thought there might be.
Bylaw, sorry. For the inclusion of the electoral areas B, E, and L in the service areas.
Thank you. Director Hayward is seconding that. Do we have any discussion? All right, thank you. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Carried. Regional Community to Community Program Grant. We do have a recommendation to apply for 5,000. Director Blackwell, seconded by Director Thorpe. Discussion? All those in favor?
Yay.
Opposed? Carried. 12.1.8, High Bar First Nation. Director Thorpe, thank you. Seconded by Director, I'm sorry, Karpak. It's been a long meeting. I'm still coping with everyone having been moved around. Have patience. All right. Any discussion on this one? Nope. All those in favor?
Yay.
Anyone opposed? Carried. 12.1.9, Fall 2024 Search and Rescue Grant Application. Director Middleton moves that, seconded by Director Newstader. Discussion? and the remaining balance will be rolled forward into the spring 2025 intake. All right, all those in favor? Anyone
Yay.
opposed? Carried. We move on to 12.1.10, and Mr. Vieira just has a few words of clarification.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, Board. Just wanted to provide a very brief sort of overview of the report in front of you. So this has to do with the proposed KSAR purpose-built search and rescue facility. So in November 2023, this board directed staff to work with KSAR and the City of Kamloops to seek suitable land for a purpose-built hall and look into funding options. And this was following a presentation from KSAR Vice President Paula Davies, who's here with us today, regarding their need for a purpose-built hall, as the current facility doesn't meet their needs, and the lease they have for their current facility with the City of Kamloops is ending. So a working group was created, including representatives from both the City of Kamloops, TNRD, and KSAR. And through the process of the course of about 6 months, that working group met regularly. A number of potential properties were identified and evaluated against a number of pre-identified criteria. So this process concluded with the property owned by the City of Kamloops and Rayleigh being identified as the best location. Now, this is referred to in a report, and I want to pause here and provide some clarification on what was referenced in the report. The report stated that the land was offered at no cost by the City of Kamloops. However, I want to clarify that Kamloops Council has not made this decision or discussed this yet. Obviously, any sale or donation of land by the city would be a decision of the City Council. But in this process in seeking suitable land, we were reviewing available properties primarily owned by the city and some actually owned by the TNRD as well, with the intent that we would go to the board or the council who owned that property with that consideration to offer at no cost. So I apologize that the language in the report is a bit misleading in that decision had been made, which it hadn't yet. So following the process of identifying the most suitable location, preliminary design and a Class D budget was then completed and is attached to this report. But then after that was completed, that's when a new idea started percolating. So we discovered in discussions that perhaps there was an opportunity to work with Kamloops Fire Rescue and KSAR on a possible joint facility, as KFR is also in need of replacing current hall number 5 at some point. So there have been a few meetings and preliminary discussions with staff at TNRD and KFR and KSAR on this topic, and all involved feel like there's some great opportunities moving forward, both in cost savings and operational efficiencies. But to be clear, those discussions were still at early stages, as we wanted to first come back to this board and deliver what was originally directed by this board, which is contained in this report. So for that reason, the recommendation in this report is seeking direction to do further work on this concept of a joint facility. And then a future discussion regarding possible funding sources would happen, as well as a more detailed design. Included in this report is a discussion on possible funding sources for the originally proposed facility for information, and happy to discuss it further if there's any questions, but there's no recommendation on moving forward with funding at this time until we, as recommended, if the board supports us, recommended to go down this road of this joint facility in more detail. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. So we do have a recommendation. Director Sarai, Director Grenier, did you want to second that? Okay. And did you also have a question? All right, Director Grenier. So it's moved and seconded. We have Director Grenier.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the explanation. We've had a lot of discussion about the gas tax and how there's a new move to own facilities if we're going to be using gas tax. And I think the recommendation here clearly specifies that we're not getting into the search and rescue business. We're not going to be a third party that owns it at this time, or at least we're not considering that at this time. I just want to make sure that we understood that, because we've had a lot of discussion about the use of gas tax money and where it can be applied, and the combining of the explanation in your report. I wasn't sure if you were heading in that direction or if that's just information to talk about in a future discussion.
Thank you. Through to Chair to Director Grenier. Yeah, the concept that's being considered here is a facility that is owned either by the TNRD or the City of Kamloops or some sort of joint ownership. And then KFR as a separate organization would then be leased and utilize that facility.
So if we are considering owning it, you'll be coming back with a full-scale budget and we have a process of funding search and rescue organizations. We just updated it. And so you're thinking of doing something beyond that in this particular case?
Yeah, through the chair, correct. This would be a big leap in addition to what we're doing. Our current funding is just grant and aid. So this model would be something completely new where this board would need to support. In this case, likely, I mean, either there's different funding options discussed there, but likely a public assent process to approve borrowing for capital and then also operating costs for a facility. So we're still at the early stages of this, but it would be a TNRD facility or a joint facility was the model that is being discussed.
Alternate Director Beppel.
Thanks. I just want to know a comparison between the timelines of the preliminary design and budgeting compared to Kamloops Search and Rescue's need for a new facility and how those align. And also in terms of the process, who is going to be taking the lead on this? Is it going to be the TNRD? Is it the City of Kamloops? Who is in the lead on all of those processes?
Thank you. Through the chair. The lead has been the city, the lead has been the TNRD on this process. Is it the recommendation came through this TNRD board to look for a location and the city got involved in supporting this process of searching for possible land. And one of the reasons that came about is their current facility that KSAR is leasing is a city-owned facility. In terms of the timeline for a new facility for KSAR, I can't speak to that in much detail as that agreement's with the City of Kamloops. But I understand that there is some flexibility in moving forward to try get a timeline in place for a new facility, and it'll be up to the City of Kamloops of how and when to extend that lease.
Anyone else have any questions? On the question, then, all those in favor?
Yay.
Anyone opposed? That is carried. 12.1.11 is for information only, South Green Lake street lighting. Anyone have any questions or comments on that? Director Smith?
Thank you. Yeah, I'd just like to apologize to the staff for wasting their valuable time on this effort. And in the words of a great mayor, John Ranta, it didn't go well.
We will refrain from the obvious kept in the dark references here and move on to 12.1.12 Vavenby Transfer Station License of Occupation Renewal. Director Sao, thank you. Seconded by Director Getz. Any questions? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Director Kerslake, we didn't hear you, but I'm
Okay.
guessing you're in favor. Thank you. That's carried. We have the building permit activity highlights. Anyone have any questions on that? Closed meeting matters to be brought forward to open meeting. So we have released from closed the decision regarding the property at 380 Main Street in Lytton. This is for information only. Anyone have any questions or comments? Director Grenier.
Thank you, Chair. I just was going through the report and it talks about the insurance payout, but it doesn't say how much the insurance payout was. And I was thinking for the public who are reading this, we might put that into the amount so that we could say, this is how much Lytton got out of the insurance payout, if I've got that right.
No, I believe that was in the report. Refund the village 400, oh, that's the amount they paid.
That's correct.
Okay. Anyone have any answer to that question?
I have the answer to that. I just want to pull it up here. Also, my computer works. There we go.
So Director Green, you want to know how much of the insurance payout the village of Lytton got?
I'd just like to amend that paragraph where it says they received 453 and change from the amount.
Oh,
that-
from the total amount of the insurance payout which was received. Okay.
The total amount of the insurance payout was 1.566 million.
Okay, thank you.
I'd just like to amend the report so that that information's in there.
All right. So you're making that as a motion then that the report that was released to the public be amended to include the staff to refund the village 453,301.29 for their contributions to the building since 2002, a portion of the total of 1.556 million in insurance money that was received.
Yes.
That's okay. So you're making that motion. Who would like to second that? Director Thorpe? Any discussion? Director Lipso?
So once again, I'm just questioning the process. So we released something from in camera and now we're trying to amend something that we discussed in camera. I don't know the right or wrong. I'm just wondering.
Thank you through the chair to Director Lab. So I can that information was provided in camera. This the report which was attached to this agenda was not the report which went to the in-camera meetings. It was a summary of the decisions which were made at the in-camera meetings. So the board had been informed about the $1.5 million insurance payout and the refund to Lytton based on that. And so the resolution from Director Grenier is simply to include in the public report the insurance figure which had been provided and which is a public figure. So yes, we can do that.
All right, so we do have a motion. All those in favor?
Yay.
All right, thank you. That's carried. Any further discussion? We have the Wells Gray Country Services Committee draft minutes. We have a piece of information correspondence from Interior Health. New business. I know we have new business from Director Hayward and from Director Onslow. All right, Hayward, Onslow. Director Hayward, you go ahead. Alternate Director Beppel.
I hope everybody read all these 3 letters. If you didn't, you're bad. So I'm speaking on behalf of the TNRD Invasive Plant Management Committee. We've been working very hard over the past few years in advocating for more funding to address invasive weeds within our region. Our staff has done an amazing job of working on this, and our invasive weed committee is amazing. So I would like to move that the board approve letters be sent on behalf of the Invasive Plant Management Committee and the board to the new ministers. These letters are in the blue folders, you will see. And the ministers are Minister of Environment and Parks, Minister of Forests, and Minister of Transportation and Transit.
Thank you. Director Graham seconded that motion. Anyone have any questions? On the motion, all those in favor? Anyone
Yay.
opposed? Carried. Director Onslow.
Thank you for that. I as well have a letter and I dropped it off just before the meeting started. So the motion is that a letter be sent jointly with Simp First Nation requesting a meeting with the Minister of Public Safety and Solicitor General regarding the removal of the tiny house warriors from Blue River.
So you're making that motion, Director Onslow? Second by Director Blackwell. Thank you. Any discussion on a letter regarding the tiny house warriors? All those in favor?
Yay.
Opposed? Carried. Director Sao.
Thank you. Not a motion, but just new business. On December 5th, I'll be going to address the Churchill Secondary School where my friend teaches Law 12 and Social Studies. I plan to bring a short 20-minute presentation to the students about challenges of interior rural communities. If anybody would like to add their stories, anecdotes, please reach out. I will be glad to add that. Thank you.
Thank you. Alternate Director Beppel.
Thanks. Just an update. I attended FCM committee meetings this week for BC Caucus, Finance, Infrastructure and Transportation, and the Anti-Racism, Equity and Inclusion. Thanks to Directors Thorpe and Grenier and staff who gave me some input. The next step is December 3rd to 5th. I'll be going to Ottawa along with other board and committee members to meet with MPs and senators, including the plan is Frank Kudo. The focus of advocacy days will be emphasizing the importance of a new municipal growth framework where there's more permanent ongoing funding as opposed to just grant-based funding to reflect the needs for not just building, but also maintaining infrastructure and to use it for other things, including recreational facilities or fire stations. Just as an example, I was given information about the small water systems in the TNRD and difficulties funding them. That was exactly what FCM was looking for in terms of being able to give concrete examples to MPs of how the current funding is not working. So if you have any examples, feel free to send them to me, not just for TNRD, but also your municipalities. And just as an aside, invasive weeds came up in the BC caucus, and it's also a concern in the Kootenays, the same issue. That was brought up as well. So thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else have any new business? Are there any notices of motion? Do we have any questions from the public? All right. Then I will move that we move into a closed meeting and that meeting be closed under Community Charter Sections 90.1C, Labor Relations or Other Employee Relations, and E, the acquisition, disposition, or expropriation of land or improvements if the board considers that disclosure could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the regional district. Second, Director Bass, thank you. All those in favor? We're going to take a brief recess so that everyone can get coffee and I can say goodbye to my parents, Bill and Heather, who are in the gallery visiting from Penticton, and this is their idea of a fun afternoon.